to our Facebook group. And then we have also now started posting them, I think, on our YouTube channel too. So everyone's got access now. And I think most everybody, well, I know most of you, but we'll just do some quick intros because we love to just make sure everyone knows who each other is and it's all about making a community. So I can just tell you who I am. I'm Suzanne Moore, the founder of the Central Oregon Investor Network, and my goal is to do this, is to bring people together so we can learn about various aspects of real estate. And this is a topic that I know very little about. So I'm so excited to have Landon and Dave here to talk to us about sober living and veteran housing. And, you know, there's more like sub strategies or, you know, groups of people to help with this. But these are the two that these folks have experience with. So I'm an investor. I think most of you know that. I'm invested in Oregon and Michigan. And, you know, we love bringing investment opportunities with, you know, different strategies to people so that folks can think about, you know, a community give back component of investing. And, you know, we were just looking at a property Dave's going to share in a bit. There's a property on the market that actually one of our agents in the office, it's her listing. And like, the numbers look really good. So it's great to, you know, do good and help your own family and situation. So yeah, let's just start. Chuck, you want to give us your background?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
I'm an investor as well, here in Oregon, and California, and Ohio, and Tennessee, and want to do more in Oregon. So my background is more on the multifamily side. So did some single family flips a long time ago, 20th century. And then yeah, I've been doing multifamily, dabbling a little bit into land development, some retail buildings. We have an industrial building down in La Pine that has Legend Cider. So it's down there.
Yeah. That's your building?
Yeah, that's my building.
Oh, so cool. That is such an awesome space for this.
Thank you. It's not me, it's my tenant, but she's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they're great. Hopefully they'll buy it from me one day.
Oh, good.
They're another one. But yeah, I'm super excited about this. I've got a building in Corvallis where we have it. It's a furnished housing situation, and it's turning into what I realized is a co-living situation. The nurses do it because it's their job. But I'm finding my tenants really want to stay because they build this community. And so it's an intriguing concept. So that's why like the group home concept seems intriguing to me. I know probably as much as you, which is very little. So yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, nice to have you. All right. I'll keep admitting people as we're going. Yeah, so just, you know, who you are.
Okay. Let's see. I've been in healthcare for like 30-something years. Worked in hospitals for like, oh my gosh, 20-something all over. I'd like to mention Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
It's kind of my passion. I worked at Touchmark for like 10 years and I resigned there in June, I think. And then I started my own business in June. End of June, called Bring. It was supposed to be more of a transportation with the elderly, and Alzheimer's is like taking them to appointments, because I think it's more compassion for them. I have, for instance, I have a client in downtown Bend, and her daughter also lives in downtown Bend. She owns her own business, but she has a 2-year-old and a family, and her mom lives there, and so she needed some breaks from her mom. Because she'd keep coming over to her house when she's trying to do her business part on her computer, and then she has her 2-year-old, and she would walk over there. Well, I find out she walks over there quite a bit during the day. So I kind of relieve her by taking her to lunch. Places that she likes to go. I take her to sisters, and, you know, just trying to keep her in her own home as long as possible.
Is she an Alzheimer's patient?
Yeah, she is.
That's mentioned.
Well, no, actually, dementia. She's kind of at the part where she's going to into a different, in a facility, and they're actually thinking of taking her to a place in Portland in January. So,
and I imagine there's some case for, like senior living kind of,
yeah, it's in
hospice sort of
yeah
opportunities in this realm as well.
Yeah, I can tell you all about
you
that too.
can? Okay. Yeah, that's great.
So,
Yeah.
and then I support for a gal that I met through starting this company, Leisure Club. She has 5 slightly, well, they're dementia, but full blown, or in the middle stage. They're kind of like right in there, and so I help her, and so yeah, that's where I am, and I'm thinking of possibly teaming with her.
Okay.
As a resident care manager, thinking of checking into that orientation class, I think, for a license.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And then there's a house across the street from where we live that keeps going and working. So I keep kind of like, gosh, it'd be great to have that house and have like 4 residents. Yeah.
Well,
Because
I'm going to talk to here with.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very comfortable with them and, the stages they go through. I don't know. I like that kind of work.
Yeah. Really? Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah. So that's what I'm here.
All right, Carrie.
Yeah, thanks, Suzanne. Thanks for holding this open. My name's Carrie. Been a real estate broker and investor. Did some fix and flips, and just excited to be in the community and networking. So thank you.
Excellent. So great to finally meet you in real life.
Dave Budnick, real estate investor, just like everybody here, I guess. We own properties in Oregon, in Texas, and Mississippi, and we have a new project that we just kicked off. We locked up some land in Redmond, and we're building a memory care house, 16 bed, 17 bath, 12,000 square foot facilities. Not like nothing that's on the market here in the community.
Wow.
Beautiful. And it's going to take, probably till sometime mid 2026 to get it open. We're still working with Redmond on zoning and stuff like that, but pretty excited about that project. But that came as an outgrowth on our learning about how to do clean and sober living and group houses and things like that. So
Yeah.
cool.
Wow. Amazing. Christy.
I am Christy Jesperson, and I'm a real estate agent here for Realty One, Group Discovery, and Suzanne and Sarah, my mentors, and I am just taking in as much information as I can in the investment world, real estate world. My background is in vacation rentals with a family-run business in Spain, in Malaga. And I've been in Bend now 20 years, very connected to the community and looking to expand and grow wherever it takes me. I own a massage wellness center here in Bend and have for 12 years. So very connected to the healing and that health and wellness. So yeah, I'm looking forward to all the connections.
Fabulous. All right, Matt, you were the first one online. Please just give us a little background on you and tell us about what brought you to our event.
Yeah, hey there, everyone. I'm Matt Long. I'm a very small-time real estate investor. I own a couple of places in Bend that I've just house hacked as personal residences on the first one, and then kept it as a long-term rental. And then did it again with another multifamily. So the first one was a single family with an ADU. And now I'm doing it again with a duplex, and then looking to get another one in town and rent this one out. And then this one just really interested me because the first home that I rented out to the group home. So it's a living facility, but it's something along the same concept, and seems to be working really well for me so far. So
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, Matt, we can't hear you. Wait, Mackenzie and Landon, can you hear Matt? No? Okay. Oh, maybe it's your headphones. I don't know.
No, he's muted.
Oh, unmute. You're still muted.
Can you unmute him or see?
No, I can't. You can't unmute somebody.
Oh, Matt.
Oh, there. Are you back? No. Okay. Well, it was good to hear about about your investments and yeah. Next time, join us in person. Oh, and maybe it's
He left.
Maybe
Maybe he'll
he'll
just
next.
drive over and
Yeah.
sit here. Cool. Well, Landon, let's hear from you.
Sweet. Yeah. My name's Landon. Originally from Central Oregon, moved to Phoenix. I'm down here in Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona. Moved down here about 6 years ago. Also a real estate investor. Was just up in Bend for the summer and hosted a meetup there. Planning on doing the same thing next summer. So hopefully you guys can attend that next mid-June. It's probably when we move back. Once it gets hot here, we head back up there. And real estate investor, own various properties around the country, mostly Oregon, Washington, Montana, and Arizona. Short-term rental, long-term rental, mid-term rental, and then sober living homes. And I'm actually in escrow under contract for another sober living home right now up in Washington. And so we can talk about that one later on today as well too, or the one that I currently operate right now. That's about it, I think. Anything else, Suzanne?
That's it. We'll get more into it as we get into
Yeah.
your section. Welcome, Mackenzie. Good to see you.
There we go. Perfect. Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Okay, great. My name is Mackenzie Flanagan. I also grew up in Central Oregon over in Redmond. I'm actually over here in the Portland area. I am an aspiring person of investment real estate. I currently just really want to get out of this meeting is to learn about the sober living and veteran housing and see how, if I'm going to start this, process, how I can be impactful with it. I don't just want to own a home or start that process. I'd love to make an impact where I'm at or where it's needed the most. And here in Portland, we've got a lot of those big issues, right? So yeah, just looking to learn from you guys here and be a sponge.
The right place. Welcome. All right. All right. Let me get back to, I have like so many screens open. Sorry, guys. Good to see all of you. All right. So let's just dive in. And I first just want to just talk about the why behind this. And so I think Landon, yeah, let's just have you talk about,
Sure.
Giving purpose, giving back to the community and how you've done that with sober living.
For sure. Yeah. When I got into real estate about 5 years ago or so, and, my path was primarily focused on, I guess, money, like cash flow, really, at my mid-20s. And so the quickest way I thought to do so was short-term rentals. So I thought I was going to be Mr. Short-term rental guy. And we have a portfolio of short-term rentals. They're super cool, flashy, glitzy, glammy, the murals, the heated pools, the mountain houses, really cool stuff. Like, it's fun to travel to with the family, certainly, and they do very well. But the reality is, as the years have gone on, one, regulations just increase in every jurisdiction, every city, as well as two, saturation occurs because more and more people get short-term rentals or turn their properties into Airbnbs. But the reality of it is that we're truly not providing affordable housing for those who genuinely need it. And there's a huge demand for that across so many spectrums of demographics of people and whatnot. And there's a world where you can have both, where you get the cash flow from your properties while still providing, back to the community and doing something way more fulfilling. And so for me, like, out of all my properties that I own currently, my sober living home is by far my favorite property because of the impact it has on the local community and the girls that live in it. And so that's one of the, I would argue, the forefront of, why I own the sober living home. The money's great for sure, but we're doing it in specific counties to help out that there's a huge demand and need. And there's a lot in Central Oregon alone, and we can talk about that, as well as up in, Clark County, Vancouver, Washington, and Cowlitz County, Kelso, Longview area, which is primarily where I focus right now. But you just get the opportunity to play a small role in helping others achieve what they're attempting to do.
Yeah. And then Dave,
Sure.
just talking about that transitional housing piece that.
Yeah. So we looked at sober living as a way to kind of grow out of our, small mom and pop type giving operations. We were writing checks every month and donating to a couple of local charities and the food banks, and we were working handing out food every couple of weeks or whatever, doing the Bend Food Project. And we thought, we really weren't making any kind of measurable difference for anyone. And if we got hit by a bus, would the food, the giving plate even know that Dave and Peggy weren't contributing anymore? So we had a short-term rental that was doing fine. It was full, but the rents were going down and down because of the oversupply in the market in Redmond. And we had been shopping for something to create a charity and build a sober living home. And we just said, let's repurpose what we have. And that was a great thing to do because it really sort of taught us without having to go and buy another property. We did a deep dive into sober living. We got some training. We went and met people that were doing it around the country and trying to figure out what the market was. And there's lots of interest groups that need help. And it's whether you have, women coming out of abusive situations or people coming out of incarceration or kids aging out of foster care or disadvantaged groups or like our veteran group. And we thought veterans would be a great place to start because there's already an infrastructure around the veteran organizations and, in this community and every community basically. And they have a genuinely a positive reputation in the community. Everybody wants to help veterans. So some of the groups are like, hey, not in my backyard. I don't want people coming out of incarceration and showing up in my neighborhood, or I don't want, people that are in abusive relationships showing up and having fights. And, so a lot of neighbors get really sketchy about that. So we said, well, if we're going to do this and we're going to keep growing over the years, let's start with an easy one. And that was veterans. So, and both my wife and I had, dads that were still around, last year and the year before who were active duty World War II, and we were very proud of their service. And, so we thought this is a good connection for us. So that was kind of our way to give back and make a difference. And, we've had 9 guys in that house now over the last year, and, we've made a difference in 9 guys' lives. And it's been kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you reach them? Do you go to the veterans?
So all kinds of ways. We're part of the Redmond Homeless Coalition. We're part of the local, homeless activity organizations. We work with the veterans, the COVOs and Oregon Veterans Outreach. We work at Veterans Ranch. We work with all the local charities. We work with Bethlehem Inn, Shepherd's Gate, and, all the ones around just to kind of network. And because we're a charity, they all want to welcome us into their circle of other charitable organizations. So we created a charity to do this, separate and distinct from actually renting the house. And we'll talk about that in a bit, but it's sort of like anything. If you're a real estate investor, you want to meet other real estate investors. Yeah. If you're a charitable organization focusing on helping people in the community, you want to meet everybody else who's doing that kind of activity as well.
And are they paying you or the state?
Right now, it's a private pay setup. But they all get benefits. They get, money from the state or Social Security or disability or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll get into how it works. So there's a lot of similarities, and I tried to have like a side by side here. So yeah, let's just start with the sober living because it seems like most things cross over, but there's some specifics with regard to veteran housing. So Landon, you want to take sober living?
Totally. Yeah. So, my exposure to sober living, specifically down here in the Phoenix Scottsdale market, is there's really a bifurcation. There's really 2 ways you can go about operating sober living facilities. And it dips a little bit into, adult assisted living facilities. Now, sober living facilities do not require licensing. You do not have to go out and get fire sprinklers for these homes, these single family homes, these zoned single family homes. Once you reach a certain occupancy level and size is where you need to in different type of demographics. But as it relates to like what I'm doing and sober living, you don't need licensing. These are just standard single family homes. And there's really 2 ways you can go about operating the facility. Number one, the way that Some do it here locally. Like there's a gentleman, we'll talk about him here in a minute. He goes by the Sober Investor. You can look him up, and he self-manages. He probably has 60 or 70 facilities, I think, down here in the Maricopa County, Arizona area market, and he does his own management. He procured all the furnishings, the bedding, the bed frames, the mattresses. He manages all the tenants and the vacancies, the issues, right? The lease agreements. And every one of his homes, he has a live-in manager. So he doesn't have to go around to every single house. He just has point people in every house, right? And then there's the way that I do it. So the way that I do it is leveraging a third-party management system or a national organization. There's a couple out there that are bigger names that you can do this, where it's one organization that has the lease on the home, and then they sublease it to the girls or the guys or the women and the children or whomever is the demographic moving into that specific home. In my case, the one that I own is 11 women. And so for me, it makes it easier as it relates to, I only have one point person I have to speak with who manages that home. She's what you would call the chapter lead. She leads the chapter for the entire county, just like Deschutes County is a chapter. There's a chapter lead that manages all, I think there's 7 homes in Central Oregon under that organization, and they all report to her. And then she's my point person for if there's ever any issues. But I never hear about any vacancies or any issues in the home or anything related to that. That's kind of beyond it. So as it relates to, managing the property, it's treated like a long-term rental, if you will, is that my tenants in there, they pay all the utilities, they pay their rent every single month, and they collect the rent from the girls, and all the girls have jobs out in the community, or guys, if it's a men's home. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, the beautiful thing is it feels so much like what you would call in the commercial space, like a triple net lease. They take care of the landscaping, the housekeeping. Every single girl has a role and a job in the home. And as the landlord, as the owner of the property, I don't much have to worry about, dealing with phone calls and dealing with, hey, this person's not paying, or this person's moving out, or whatever it may be. The organization handles that. So if you think about it from a dollars and cents standpoint, they're basically master leasing it such that, they're paying me X dollars, and then they're charging the girls more than, so they can arbitrage the difference, and they're handling everything. And so there's more money to be made in the self-management space, but also with more money to be made is more responsibility and more issues potentially. And so that's where I choose, from a time and bandwidth standpoint, to use the national organization to manage the properties.
Perfect. And then, speak to the rules.
Yeah, so in our case, we are like Landon set up, but we created our own charity to be that other organization. So we actually we don't own the charity, because the charity owns the charity, right? It's a 501c3, and we own the property, and we lease the property to the charity. So we're actually playing both roles. But in order to be a charity and to operate in the clean and sober living space, for us, we had to set up a pretty strict set of rules. We have, because we're we'll talk about this in a bit, but because we're a program, not a, sort of a traditional renter, they have, as you can see on the screen, curfews, and we have the right to drug test everybody, and we have to go in and make sure that the house is being run well, and all that, all the things that the organization that Landon uses would do for him. So it's a little bit of a heavier lift for us, but that was sort of our mission. We wanted to create that charity and to put in the time to do that work, just sort of as a way to give back, separate, distinct from making a return on real estate.
And then, we would talk about it's not a landlord-tenant relationship,
Right.
which is
so
really...
and Landon could probably drive down into this in his rentals as well. You don't have to, but we did. Because they're clean and sober living homes, they fall under the purview of the Americans with Disabilities Act and the federal. And that allows us to create a relationship between the people who rent from us and the facility, so that they're not renters in a traditional landlord lease, way. They are participants in our clean and sober living program. So the program controls whether they stay or not. So if we have problem people in there and they violate the rules, which is why we have all those rules, then we can get them out of the place within a couple of days if they're repeat offenders. So we don't have the traditional landlord tenant protections that you would if you were renting to the individuals. So that's
Yeah.
important to understand.
And that's the same for sober living, Landon, or not?
Oops.
Yeah, very similar. He hit the nail on the head. And that's what's beautiful about, there's so much, and rightfully so. I mean, in Oregon and Washington specifically, because of the tenant landlord rights being so heavily in favor of the tenant, in every state too. Like I met a guy here 2 days ago at my gym that is battling a tenant, believe it or not, for the past 2.5 years, going through an eviction, offered him just Monday, $5,000 cash and 2 months free to find himself a place. And this morning, the judge ruled in favor of the tenant. So he gets all of his bond money back, a court appointed lawyer and everything. So everything is falling in line with the tenant, even here in Arizona, which is quote unquote a red state, you would say. And so it's interesting when you get into tenant landlord rights, like it's real. It happens. It's not I would say it's an exception, when it does, but it does pop up, unfortunately. And so that's what's beautiful about this type of exit strategy with sober living is you kind of fall outside of those guidelines.
In your case, using the third party, that's your tenant. That's who your master lease is signed with. And then they have the program where the people are part of their program. So
That's correct.
Kind of keeps you like one layer removed, it sounds like.
Yep.
So strategy also to protect yourself and your investment.
Yeah.
While still doing good. Okay. So let's talk about some of the different types of homes, and they can be gender and age specific, right? So are they always gender specific?
No.
Is there ever like co-ed?
No, you can have co-ed if you want.
Okay.
It adds a level of complexity,
Mm-hmm.
but quite a number of sober living homes are co-ed homes.
Okay.
And they don't typically allow couples to move in because that just adds a dynamic to the whole environment that's even more, difficult. So, but usually it's women only rooms, men only rooms. And then, if they have 2 people in a room, they'll allow that.
Okay.
We chose not to in ours. And we've had some challenges because we've had people female veterans reach out and say, I'm looking for a place to stay. But because we launched the house as male only, we kind of had a house meeting. We met with all the guys and we're just like, how would you feel if we changed the dynamic of the house? And a few of the guys were like, oh boy, I don't know if I'm up for that. And their life is hard enough already as it is. And we're trying to make our place a safe and protective space for everyone who lives there. So we thought, no, let's not complicate it any further.
Mm-hmm.
Is there enough demand, Dave? Is there enough demand if we were to place a all women's veteran home in Redmond?
I've been a little frustrated with the demand. No, I would say right now, no.
Okay.
I don't know any women that I know of that are looking for a place at the moment. And we thought when we first launched this that we would be, building out 10 of these homes within 5 years. And, housing. The homeless count has gone down a little bit. We only have about 196 veterans in the Redmond area right now that are homeless. And some of those are covered by some of the other existing organizations. And frankly, what we found out is some people that live in the bushes don't want to come underneath an organization that has rules and live in the way that we need them to live in order to protect our investments.
Right.
So they kind of, once they hear all the details, they're like, okay, great. So see you later, So, but the other types of sober living, absolutely, Landon.
Yeah, totally. 100%. I mean, right now as we sit here, I think we'll get later in the slides. I don't want to jump too far ahead. I could talk all day, so I'll be patient on these slides until we get there.
Did you want to talk about the application piece?
Yeah, because we are part of that, the program, I think it's really important for everyone to understand that we have to do our due diligence. We have to do background checks. We have to disallow anyone who's a violent offender or anyone who's a sex offender. And that's just as much to satisfy our insurance for the charity as it is to keep the peace with the residents. So that's pretty important for us. So we don't let everybody in. We're not a low barrier shelter. We are a managed charity that only lets in people that qualify. So
Yep, makes sense. Any
Yeah,
questions?
and as it relates to like my situation, I mean, I'm not involved in the application process. That's all handled by the organization that does everything there. So there's benefits as it relates to I don't have to do that. I can continue on with what I'm doing and just be the landlord, right? But then there's also risk involved too of trusting the person who's managing the house and the girls or the guys, if you will, in terms of they're bringing in the right people and manage them the right way. And so there's a little bit of I don't know, to be transparent. In terms of what they allow and what they don't. And so I don't know deep levels of those things.
That's fine. One thing that I think does set apart sober living as what you specifically have going on is the tenants in, you know, the organization that you're working with, Landon. They all have a role, and we talked about this when we were prepping the other day, just about how these jobs give them a purpose, right?
Mhm.
And so
That's
I think,
the truth. Yeah, I was going to get into that. Is Sarah there today or no?
no, she's in Hawaii. That's her purpose.
Okay, good for her. So she wouldn't tune in from the beaches of Mahalo. Like, what are we doing? No, Sarah and I this summer went and toured, I think 3 or 4 active homes there in Bend. And it was Sarah's first time seeing the systems and the operation. And I remember after the second home, distinctly, I'll never forget this moment. You know, Sarah, we were standing outside of it, and Sarah was almost tearing up. It was beautiful to watch because she goes, it's so impressive to watch. We walked into active homes, people in these homes, how proud these girls were. We went to all women's homes. We wouldn't go to the men's homes because dudes are gross. But there are men's homes. Like there's one in Bend that's right there. It's near the Costco in Bend. It's right next door to the women's home, so they're right by each other. But like these girls were so proud of their rooms and so proud of who they're becoming. And a part of that right here on the slide shows like each of the girls have roles within the home and they're appointed jobs, and they can earn seniority by way of what they do in the home and all the various things that they get the better room. Maybe they're starting out, you know, when they first come into the home into a double room, and through time and through skills and becoming the bookkeeper or becoming this, they become, you know, the one of the top, you know, people in the home, such that they can get the master suite in the home by itself with its own private bathroom and whatnot. But just seeing the pure pride on their faces of who they're becoming and whatnot was really impressive and stuck with Sarah for sure. And me as well. It adds structure and empowers them too. Like the Deschutes County chapter lead is what her title is technically. She lives in Portland, but she manages this district, and she is a graduate of a sober living home and became and grew her way up within the organization to become the chapter lead, overseeing, you know, multiple counties for the organization. And so it's pretty cool that there is structure in place. It's not just, you know, freewheeling, and they all have roles, and all the girls in our home have jobs locally, you know, and we'll talk about, you know, homes here shortly, but all of them are able to get jobs at the local grocery store or the video store, if those are still a thing, or like the Kmart or, you know, whatever's nearby.
Yeah. We haven't really talked about this, and I don't want to waste a lot of time, but there is the whole counseling aspect of clean and sober living homes. And that's something that the charity or the third party organization gets involved in. And a number of the things that people can do is they can grow into peer counselors. So they all have case managers and case workers that come in, and they have group meetings, and they have all these things, all these activities that happen in the house. And then over time, as you progress on your journey, you can become a responsible member of the community and become a peer manager for the community that you live in. So you're not the house manager, that's sort of rules and regulations and all that, but you're a counseling manager. You're able to give back to the community. And that's a step forward in that path that a lot of those folks, they get training and they look forward to trying to do that. So Landon hit on a good point. It's really about, you know, creating a new identity for yourselves as you progress in the clean and sober living journey.
Yeah, and having something else to do with your time in a lot of these cases, is really crucial. So now we want to talk about what kind of property is the best, you know, setup, because there's specifics to this. It's not your 3-2 standard cookie cutter, you know, suburban home. So let's talk about the big one that goes across both. which is non-HOA.
Yeah. Very
Andy, you
important.
want to do that one?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
just,
okay.
you know, the whole attitude of not in my backyard is really prevalent. And once the neighbors know that some kind of group house is going in, you know, all the worst images in their mind just, you know, pop into reality, and they start becoming, instead of reasonable neighbors, they start becoming crazy people and saying, you know, they bring out the pitchforks and you know, the torches and chase you around the neighborhood saying, we will not do this in my neighborhood, and I don't want these people here. You don't even know what you're going to do, but you know, it's just a change. So having an HOA is an extra layer of complexity that you have to fight. They can put rules in place. They can say, you know, you can't do this, even though at the end of the day, you can go to court and you can win. The question becomes, do you want to spend a year or 2 years fighting and the money it's going to take just to do your property in that particular location? So it's easier just to say no HOA properties only when you consider looking for an acquisition, and, you know, move on and just avoid all that.
Yeah, and for us as realtors, like, that is a box we can check that's like no
Yep.
HOA. We can just filter that out if that's something that someone is looking for.
Yeah, what's funny is like, you know, there's a few homes. What's even funnier is as we're going through this, I think about my mom is totally that person, Dave, that would cause a stink in the neighborhood. She's not in an HOA right now, but she's acting as if she's the neighborhood HOA president. It's quite funny. But like thinking about like as it relates to HOAs, you know, we look at them when we're acquiring short-term rentals too because of the rental restrictions, right? Well, with sober living, and I would assume veteran housing, but I'm not entirely certain, to be honest. It's not necessarily not allowed. You're allowed to do it. It's protected federally. But like Dave said, like you just deal with the potential headaches and whatnot of everything as it relates to not only the committee and the people and all the things, but really what you're running into as well too is just being a nuisance potentially with parking. You know, if you have 11 women or 11, more importantly, men, our women homes don't really they don't have a ton of cars, but the men's homes are like every dude has a truck. That's just what it is. And so you have 11 vehicles out front and a buddy comes over. It's just like something's always going on, you know? So you're running into that issue. And then, you know, the one in Vancouver that we own, we converted it from a 4-3 to a 7-bed, 3-bath by converting the garage. Well, some HOAs need to have that front facade of a garage. So you may be limited in terms of what you can do. So it's just best if you can avoid HOA areas as much as you can, just to simply avoid headaches. And there's plenty of properties and opportunities out there that you can do so.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about neighborhood and ideal home.
Yeah, I pulled this punch list from one of the trainings that I did when I was first on the journey of learning about sober living, and it's a lot of common sense stuff. But you know, if you have a mixed demographic neighborhood that's got a whole variety of different people living there, a high percentage of renters already, you know, you're likely dealing with a neighborhood that has an investor base to it, and they're going to be more welcoming to bringing in another, you know, kind of rental house into the area. You want places that people can walk to transportation and walk to jobs. As Landon said, all of his, you know, his ladies have jobs, and not all of them have transportation, so they need to get around. They don't have somebody like you who's going to drive them, you know, to a cool place. They need to be able to walk to shopping. You know, I bought a little wheelie basket for one of my old veterans because he was walking home from the grocery store with big bags of groceries, and it's like, dude, you know, let us get you a basket, and you can pull that behind you. So now he's got this thing he can put like 12 grocery bags in and feed the neighborhood. You know, he's pretty happy about that.
I know those exist out there. Only in New York.
Yeah.
In Europe, yeah.
Europe.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Couldn't find one locally, but I found it on Amazon,
On
of course.
Amazon.
It's like a business.
Yeah. So those things are all important. It's just the flexibility of the neighborhood and being able for them to get around. I think, Landon, you mentioned buying bikes for, you know, your folks, and we bought a couple of bikes for our veterans too, so that they can, you know, they can easily ride around.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing when we're looking at subject properties. Like I'm looking at one, and I could even share my screen too at some point to show you guys, but I'm looking at a property in Bend right now that is active, like, and we'll talk through like what makes a good property. This one on Zillow right now is a 5-bed, 4-bath, 2,100 square feet as it sits. Plus then has it's non-HOA, has a large garage that we could convert to get 3 more bedrooms, turn into an 8-bed, 4-bath. It's just the prime candidate for a potential home like this. And the next thing I'm looking at is I'm doing a street view, but not a street view, like a satellite view of how close is public transportation, the nearest bus line, and that's critical for the people in there, that they can travel to their jobs. Maybe they work on the south side of Bend and this house is on the north side of Bend, or something, around that. Or, the home that we're under contract for up in Kelso is just outside of the range, that it's a little bit far away from public transportation. And so working with the organization, he goes, if you just buy like 8 or 9 bikes and we have those at the house, that should be fine. And so that's an easy spend to make it make sense and make it work on my end. So transportation or proximity to public transportation is critical. Like our home in Vancouver is right on Hazeldale Avenue. If anyone knows who that is, doesn't matter, but it's a busier street. There's literally across from the driveway is a bus stop that they can hop onto. And around the corner is the grocery store. And there's like 5 other like studio salon suites that likely these girls work at. There's a daycare right there too. So just from an ideal situation, you want to be near employment opportunities that are within walking distance, as well as public transportation. And so that's one thing to consider when you're looking for these.
And I think we've hit on it just talking about the numbers of bedrooms and such, but it's really about having that, high occupancy, right? Like that's the key. So will you talk about that? And I think that there's crossover, right?
Oh yeah, it's all the same.
Both.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, from that standpoint, I mean, the reality is you got to reverse engineer it. So from my standpoint, no different if I were self-managing, but from my standpoint, using an organization, the way that they get paid is that they charge per head in the bed. And so as many beds as you can get in the home and how many heads you have in the home is more that the organization could get paid. And that trickles down to me as the owner, the landlord. So from that standpoint, having not being enough that you're a slumlord shoving 20 people in a 1,600 square foot house, obviously, but, getting it to a place where, multiple, like for instance, we have it's a 7-bed, 3-bath. And so that means that, and we have 11 women. So that means 4 of the girls, right, are living in doubles. So they'll double up the rooms. You want to ideally find homes that you could maybe convert rooms that are an extra living space. You can convert into a bedroom, that gets you to maybe from a 4-bed to a 5-bed. Additional bathrooms are huge if you can find extra bathrooms, and enough, long driveway, larger square footages for common living spaces, or, they like to add additional refrigerators for that many people. So finding somewhere you could plug in another refrigerator. And just really looking at these spaces from a different lens than your typical vanilla cookie cutter 3-bed, 2-bath long-term rental, is that this is, something that you're looking at from an occupancy standpoint.
Yeah. And then you had some good points about like the smoking area.
Yeah, people in recovery are smokers. And so you don't want people hanging out on the front porch smoking.
Oh, that's a good point.
So we have a rule, only smoking in the backyard, and we provide facilities for that. You have to manage the utilities pretty carefully, so we control the heat and air, because they'll walk by and punch up the AC or, the heat and stuff, and your bill will double or triple. And I think, for us, we had to put some ADA compliant modifications in the house because we had some older veterans and they were having trouble getting around. And, so we have grab bars in the shower, and it doesn't have to be 100% ADA compliant, but we had some people come in and do a consultation and just say, okay, if you made these 5, changes, you should be good. So, you might want to think about that depending on the age group and the, tenants that you're looking at.
Yeah. Good. Let's see. And we did talk about this already, the location, public transportation, and then some of the things that you provide, I think.
So obviously we have a washer and dryer. Everyone's responsible for their own laundry. We have a computer and a printer so they can get online if they don't have resources. We have some consumables that we bring in probably on a quarterly basis, like a big load of paper towels and toilet paper and laundry detergent and all that stuff. But really, they're responsible for bringing their own stuff. But we just like to top it off every now and then. They need a lot of space to store the extra food. You mentioned a refrigerator or 2. If you have 11 people, you might even need 3 refrigerators. So, kind of people get into fights over who ate my whatever. So storage is important. We don't allow food in the rooms. We don't allow mini fridges anywhere. just for cleanliness purposes, and you don't want to invite bugs and stuff like that. So everything has to be out in the kitchen area. So we have extra cabinetry for dry food storage and stuff like that, which is important. We have large closets because a lot of our guys come with stuff and they want to put stuff everywhere, and we don't allow them to because you want to keep the hallways clear, the common rooms clear. Everything has to be suitable for everyone. So, you know, they can put stuff under their beds and in their closet, but that's it. And then we have locking safes for every resident so that they can, you know, protect their meds and protect their valuables and things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Good. Well, so let's talk about, I think the next one, let's see. Oh yeah, some of the considerations, you know, so we've talked about the HOA. We want to just bypass that, but insurance was another question that I had. And then if there's any specific zoning, you know, requirements. So for insurance, anything special that you can
Yeah, well, because we're a charity, we have the regular traditional renter's insurance, just like Landon would on his house. But then the charity has to have, you know, professional liability insurance as well. And we, you know, the charity pays for that on top of it. You know, zoning is an interesting issue. The city of Bend and the city of Redmond have rules and regulations about how many unassociated people can live together in the same house. I don't know if you guys have ever hit on this. Oh yeah, so that's a big issue. So you can't, you know, when you create group houses, you can't have more than 3 unrelated people living in a house or something, you know, and the HOAs will get on top of that really quickly, but the cities all have regulations, you know, about that. So because of the, you know, the Fair Housing Act, you can get around that if you're a clean and sober living environment, but it can be an issue with zoning, so you have to be careful.
And then CPNR's conditions, covenants, and restrictions are not, it's not an HOA, but it's another restriction that was placed on property, you know, that may have been placed on a property when it was subdivided and, you know, when it was platted. And there are a lot of places in Bend and Central Oregon that don't have HOAs, but that do have CCNR HOAs. Those have rules, but there's no enforcing body. So this would probably be a gray area, but just something I think to be aware of. I want to get to the juicy stuff, so I might just scoot us along. But if anyone, but yeah, so let's talk, yeah, the money part. This is what I want to talk about. Like, you know, is there any different way that you're buying these properties? And like, for the most part, it sounds like not really, right? So, you know, you're buying it either as an investment property, or maybe it's something you already had as a owner occupied property, and then you're transitioning it. But there are some, you know, like creative financing, right?
But with charity, you actually have the option of buying property inside the charity, and there are a number of charities in this area that own their own resources. We didn't have the funding to do that. We weren't going to fund the charity too, because typically you won't be able to get the same kind of mortgage options and things like that. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to come up with, you know, almost the full boat to purchase the properties. But you know, what we do is we just own the property in our name, and then we lease it to the charity. Okay. So you could theoretically do arbitrage just like you do with short-term rentals, where you know, rent a house and you find someone who wants to rent to you on a long-term lease, tell them what you're going to do, and then you arbitrage the, you know, the rent. So, you know, you could create a group home in someone else's property as long as they're looking at doing that, mm-hmm. and are willing to give you a long-term lease to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You would probably need what, like a 5-year?
Yeah. Well, we have a 5-year lease between ourselves and our charity.
Okay.
So, you know, they have a right to raise the rent during the period of time, but it's a triple net lease, and for all intents and purposes.
Got it. Yeah. And if anyone's not familiar with the arbitrage concept, we can talk about that later. But essentially, that's like for you, Mackenzie, as an aspiring investor, I thought that could be a way for you to get in this, where, you know, there's really very little money out of pocket for you other than securing a rental property, paying the security deposit, maybe, and, you know, maybe some extra. I don't know if they would require that.
You'd have to furnish the place.
Yes, you'd have to furnish it, but you wouldn't get the, you know, the investment benefits of depreciation and appreciation. But what you would get is cash flow on someone else's property. So that could be a really good strategy for you to employ, you know, just depending on your financial situation and like where you're at in your journey. Okay, so, and then just, you know, we want to address the cons, right? Why you might not want to pursue this, or things, you know, that you just want to be aware of if you are going to pursue this to prepare for extra wear and tear. So Landon, I know you've been doing this for a little while. Like, can you speak to that in terms of like turnover or anything that's been, I don't know, out of the ordinary?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just basically thinking here, you know, in that home there's 11 women living in there. So there's 11 opportunities at any one time for anything to happen. Any tenant can cause any level of damage to any home, you know, with anything. And so, you know, we've had instances where we had one girl clog a toilet and then just not say anything about it and let it sit there for like 5 or 6 days. I don't know how that happened. And so we had to send a plumber in, or they sent a plumber in to get it fixed, and whatnot. But, you know, from that standpoint, nothing, it's just more wear and tear. You have 11 people living in there. And so, you know, here in 2 years, 3 years, the home is going to be arguably in worse shape than it was when I purchased it and renovated it. And so those are things to think about in the macro. You know, let's say in 5-10 years, when you go to potentially sell the home or do something, like there's a likelihood for sure carpets being replaced. You're probably going to have to repaint it. Any flooring, baseboards, and just general wear and tear of things. You know, now you have 11 women living in a home that was originally sized for 4 bedrooms. So theoretically, you know, the piping, the electricity, and just everything is sized for, you know, 4 bedrooms, not 7. So just keeping that in mind when you're looking at things is you're going to have increased wear and tear, increased utility costs, and all of the sorts of that.
That brings up, I know it's not common, and if you're buying in a really urban area, you wouldn't come across it, but we do have some urban homes here in Bend that are on septic. So that I think like a no-go for this, because the city would require you to upgrade your septic for all occupants.
Yeah. And I put in this last line about turnover. I mean, because we're self-managing, you know, we're constantly looking for another renter. I mean, guys come and go, and, you know, they're there for 3 months or 6 months. We'd love to have them forever, but they don't. So, you know, it just takes time. You know, you gotta.
Do you have a minimum length?
What's that?
Do you have a minimum lease length, like a 3-month minimum?
From month to month. They can stay for a month, or they can stay for 10 years.
It's early in the slides, or you can really care. Do you have, what's your application process look like when you're interviewing people to move in? I mean, are you sitting down with them one-on-one, or just getting, you know, forms filled out and they pay a $50, you know, application fee and you review them? Yeah. What does that look like?
We have an online application, and then we interview them one-on-one. We have to do a background check. They have to, you know, pass. And in most sober living environments, they have a team of people, kind of the job roles that Landon talked about, that will be interviewers, and they'll say, is this person a good fit for our community? You know, they don't want to bring in people that are going to not fit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a pretty active interview process. Mm-hmm.
What's the average of a person, the longest they've stayed in the?
For us, we had one guy who stayed a year. We had a couple people that stayed, you know, 2 months. So.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about like how this actually looks. So we have a couple of examples. Who wants to go first?
Landon, why don't you go for with yours?
Okay, cool. Yeah. So a little bit about me in terms of how I acquire properties is I'm coming in with more creative approaches. So either I'm purchasing it in seller finance, so turning the previous owner of the home into the bank and creating a mortgage out of it, with them being the bank, giving them a down payment and creating a mortgage payment. Alternatively, and we'll talk on my Vancouver home here briefly, is I purchased it and it's been operational since April of this year. And that home, like I said, 4-bed, 3-bath, is in Vancouver, was brought to me from an agent, off-market property. The sellers approached her. Her name is Hannah. They approached her wanting to sell their home. Their home needed a little bit of work. They would have to put into it. They didn't have the finances to do so. They were also going through, unfortunately, a divorce. And he had purchased it with his VA loan. And when you purchase a home using a VA loan, you can typically get in for with 100% financing. So meaning in the deal for $0. They additionally had all of their closing costs and everything covered too. So they were literally in the deal for $0. And they purchased it at a time back in 2021, 2022, where they bought with future pricing in mind. That's back when real estate was like hyperinflated before interest rates took a dive north, or a fall north. And so we were able to come in on this deal here, and I paid Hannah her full listing commission as if she were listing the property. I put some money in the seller's pocket instead of them having to pay for anything and let it sit on market for 3 to 4 months or whatever, you know, or make any repairs to the property, all the showings, all the time. They're going through a divorce. Timeline's critical for them. And then, you know, I paid all the closing costs. And in Washington, there's this thing called an excise tax that I paid as well too. It's like 1.2% of the final purchase price. So all the nickels and dimes add up. And so the total cost to purchase the home, and I took over I think it was a 3.25 or 3.52. I always get those 2% interest rate mortgage on the home. $3,000 a month is the payment. And my total wire to buy the home was $36,450. That includes closing costs, money to the sellers, agent commissions, all the things. And I had a private money lender come in. Kim is her name. She brought the entire entry fee, is what I call it, into the deal. And she gets paid 11% interest on her money every single month. So that's $330 every single month that I pay her. So I pay $3,000 a month for my mortgage payment and then $330 a month for my private money lender. And I rent the house out for $47.50 a month. So my gross, I'm making, what is that? $1,250 a month in terms of my cash flow on the property before putting money away for and CapEx and all those various things. And my tenant's on a 2-year lease. And at the 2-year mark, they're going to raise it up by 3 to 5%. And we'll just keep it ripping for as long as we can on the property and make improvements along the way and yeah, keep it going. So that's typically how I purchase homes, and I do so for long-term rentals. That's how we're doing it up in Kelso right now as well too. Those sellers are going through a divorce right now as well too. And that one's an interesting one, is that the parents are the ones that actually got the loan on the property. So it's kind of an interesting one because the loan just stays in place. So the debt just stays in the seller's name. The deed transfers over to me. So I own the home, tenants, termites, toilets, responsibility, taxes, everything's on me. The debt just stays in place. And so that's typically how I'm purchasing homes right now. And that's how I purchased that one.
Got it. That's great. It's super helpful, like for you too, Mackenzie, and like anyone that's not yet in the game. If you don't have a ton of like working capital, it's a great way to start.
Yeah. So like in that deal, I think it's right. I have it right here. Probably I'm a total of $500 in the deal. And that was the earnest money deposit I had to make out of my own bank account. So from that standpoint, I'm in the deal for $0 theoretically, putting the whole thing together. And I took an acquisition fee. So, I over-raised for the entry fee. So it was like $36,000. I think we raised 45. And so I took a $10,000 acquisition fee as a part of it. So I got paid to buy the house, and it cash flows $1,200 a month.
Nice.
Yeah. And then Dave did it.
Yeah, ours a little bit different. It was traditional. We had a 1031 exchange. We bought a duplex. We tried to rent it out both sides. The 2-bed, 1-bath is the same person that was living there when we bought it. And the little old lady, she lost her husband a couple of years ago. So we just keep her there at a very low rent. And the other side is the one that we had short-term rental. We turned it into this charity. We get $2,600 a month in rent from the charity. The charity collects $4,250. You can see there. If we had all 5 guys in there at $850 a month, budget about $900 for all the expenses that the charity has to pay. So you're talking really putting maybe $500 to $750 a month back into the charity. Money that charity collects, it keeps. So we're trying to grow the charity so we can do projects with it and make improvements. We're going to blow out the backyard and put planter beds and things in there this year. And, the charity can spend to do that. But it's, it's paying me $4,000 a month, which is above market rent really for the place that, I think I could probably rent the 5-bed for $2,400, but, to a family, but, we're getting a little bit more, and we're getting a donation as well. So
I want to have you go through this example that you found,
Sure.
Dave, of
So
an
I
on-market
was,
property
Good.
in Redmond that one of my mentee, one of our agents here, has listed currently.
yeah, so I took a look this morning and I just grabbed a larger house because, you know, I thought, let's walk through some numbers. This is a 6-bed, 4-bath house listed for 800K. It's got 4,000 square feet, so plenty of room to add enhancements and add additional rooms if you want to. You know, and also a lot of space in the house to allow people. One of the things that we didn't really touch on, but it's really important for them to have multiple living areas. You need to have one big area where they can have their group meetings. And then you need to have places where people can peel off and not just hide in their bedroom, but maybe sit in a quiet area and read, or, you know, have another living area to talk, or, you know, whatever. So this house seemed to fit all of those check boxes. So you purchase it for, if you're doing traditional financing here, not the Landon route, and, you know, you put maybe 200K down, you put some money into 200 minor, you know, touch-ups and rehabs. Probably, I think I calculated, you know, another 40K or so to, you know, make the house rentable really nicely. And then, you know, if you had 12 people in there in a clean and sober environment at 800 a room, which is actually a little bit on the low end for our market, you know, you'd be making 9,600 in rent. I have a C Corp, so I charge, you know, the rental 10% property management fee. So I take that 960 off the top, and then taxes and, you know, the reserve for vacancy and reserve for maintenance, and 900 and other expenses, and, you know, your net operating income is about $6,000. You're taking home 1,800, really, plus the 960, plus another, you know, 480 for the reserve. You know, you're taking home about $4,000 a month on a 235K investment, which is about a 14.4% cash return. So, you know, whether you have another third-party organization do the leasing to the clean and sober environment or not, you know. And by the way, if you get plugged into like the drug court or some of these other organizations, they'll pay a lot more than $100 a month to. I was like, I think in Washington State they're paying $1,600 a month for a clean and sober living person coming out of redirection from the drug court. Wow. So you know, or if they're coming out of incarceration from the corrections facility, they're paying pretty high numbers. Now that adds a level of complexity that you have to worry about. But you can see right here on the face of it, without doing too much due diligence, it's a pretty nice return for money invested.
Do you know, Suzanne, do you know the story on this property? I'm looking at it online right now. This seems like a perfect sober living. It's been on market quite a while.
Oh, yeah. So it's got like at least one, maybe two separate units. It's a divorce situation. They don't speak to each other.
Nice.
There may be an opportunity for creative finance here.
Might be on a septic though.
Yeah, but I think it is slightly more rural. It's on like an acre, I think.
It's out on the end of Wiki. Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, it doesn't meet the fully urban, you know,
transportation will be a challenge and stuff. There's no bus out there, but
there would be a lot of parking, and there's a neighbor that has a lot of things in their yard, so they might not mind a few cars.
Yeah.
That's what I know. So yeah, let's sell it.
I'm down to have a conversation. I mean, they got a 2.73% interest rate on their mortgage.
Nice.
Sweet. All right. Well, I know we're already over time, which is pretty standard for us. But we also wanted to provide some of these resources. So, Landon, you want to talk about Oxford House? Yeah,
a little bit here. Just a couple different options here. Is that truthfully, no matter where you're investing, wherever it is, if it's Iowa, if it's Wisconsin, if it's Florida, literally just Google, you know, Santa Fe, New Mexico, sober living organizations. And there's going to be a bunch out there. There's some national organizations, like the Oxford House is one of them. There's a couple other ones out there that will do it in national areas, you know, and they don't cover everywhere. Like if it's rural, like I don't know this, I'm making this up, but there's likely not one in Burns. There might be something more private, not national organizational level, that you would just Google Burns sober living if you want to invest out there, you know, or if you have a home out there and you want to turn your home into a sober living. I would just start there, Google sober living and whatever your city of your rental is, and just check it out. And then Another website to check out just below that is, Patrick Legensoff, soberinvestor.net. Is he self-manages, and he's actually a recovered, what was he? I think he was methamphetamine, I think, or drugs. And so he has a really cool story of his sobriety and how he came up through the system, and now he invests back into it, and this is all he does. And so pretty cool success story there. And then there's other alternatives out there too. There's youth, there's foster care, there's different things out there for different demographics, depending on where you're at. You can just, Google group homes in your county or whatnot, and you can find different organizations that are doing this, and you can reach out to them and build relationships and have conversations and seeing what they need. Do they need a home? Maybe they're tapped out in Deschutes County, but they go, but we really need one in Crook County. Prineville really needs this type of house. It's like, okay, cool. Now I know I'm going to be searching Crook County for the next, 2 months. So something to look at.
Great. And then Dave.
Yeah, sure. I just put our website for the Veterans Housing, Homebridge Foundation, hfhousing.org. If you want to get a sense of, what our Veterans House is all about, it's right there. And I also listed the NAR Online, which is the National Alliance for Recovery Residences. A lot of sober housing organizations get rated by NAR, and there's a different group in every state that NAR sort of is the main organization over them. And so, if you want to be part of the clean and sober living standards, you get your house rated by the NAR order. That gives you the legal protection of the Affordable Care, not the Affordable Care Act, but the clean and sober legislation that exists nationally. If you're not rated, you're a bit at risk because they can say, well, you're truly not, but if you have a third party provider, that's their responsibility, not yours as a landlord to do.
Got it. These are great resources. I hope everyone is screenshotting, taking notes. And then, we're going to provide contact info here. So this is a great way to connect with Landon. If you want to snap the QR code, that'll take you to his Instagram page, more deals on Instagram. And so he can talk to you more about if you want to learn how to buy properties creatively.
What's that hat you're wearing there, Landon?
What's that?
That hat you're wearing in that picture.
The hat in that photo?
Yeah.
It's a sub 2 hat. So sub 2 is subject to the existing mortgage.
So that's how to reach Landon. And then Dave, we've got his website here for the charity, hfhousing.org. And then an email address if you want to reach out to Dave and learn more. Perfect. I'm glad you're taking a picture. I didn't do a QR code.
Mike cooler for the other guy.
What? Oh,
I think she posted it on her Facebook.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then, does anyone have a preference for next month?
Ooh,
Self-directed
just
IRA.
completed my self-directed 401k just this week.
Either. I mean, I would say.
Like it's December. Should we be, prepping for tax strategy?
I think tax strategy might get my nod.
Sure, it's great. I have a self-directed IRA with real estate. I highly recommend it.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe I'll tap you for
sure.
the company you use.
I have one property and one self-IRA, but I'll have to tell you what I have.
Okay,
For sure.
fabulous. Well, we've got two good juicy topics for December 19th. Mark your calendars, 12 to 1 p.m. before the holidays.
Dude, you're gonna get me to fly in to talk advanced tax planning strategy.
Well, if we do that, it'll be with Suhei, who did. Were you there for the meeting with Suhei? No. Oh, she's amazing, incredible. So
I think you mentioned that.
yeah. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks, Landon.
Yeah, good to see you again, Landon. We miss you.
Dude, does anyone have any questions for me?
Phoenix.
Yeah.
No, thank you guys so much.
What's the I like what you're doing with the managing organization, kind of like a triple net tenant. Do you see that as I mean, you answered it with Google, but do you see that as I just kind of get grounded on what the opportunity is in a given area, how to think about that, not just the market for a given. I have a couple buildings in mind, or a couple different ones. Is it just Google and ask these local organizations that do sober living? Hey, what do you think about XYZ area? Or is there?
Yeah. So, here, let me go to, I can show you right now. Boom. Actually, can I share my screen?
You should be able to do that. No problem.
Let's get in the details here.
Okay. I have like 5 more minutes before I have to be at my next meeting.
Share.
I might have, if you can fly out here, I don't mind talking to you next month. So.
Can you guys, oh no. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
These.org.
Yeah. It's Oxford Online, isn't it?
Well, I think it's Oxford vacancies. So here you go. So Oxford House, you can go to oxfordvacancies.com. I thought it was .org. Don't know why. Anyway, choose your state. Doesn't matter. So like right now, here's a prime way to look at this. Pick your county. So let's just shoot because that's what y'all are at. Here's all the current sober living homes in Deschutes County. There's a women, children, men, women, children, women, men, women, children, men. Okay. But I want you guys to look at something very critical. It's right over here at vacancies. There's 2 vacancies in the entire county. Do you think there's a demand for another home in the county? 100%. So that's where you can go to your specific counties, depending on where you're at. Like here's Klamath. There's a little bit of vacancy. So I probably wouldn't buy a home in Klamath right now. These are the larger homes too. They got 2 men's and 1 women's children. So they're pretty good right now. I don't think they need a new one, whereas Deschutes for sure. Let's go to Clark. They don't even have Clark on here, but I know they have one.
But that's Washington.
What was that?
Clark County is Washington.
Crook. I was thinking of Crook. Sorry. Let's go back to Crook. Did it have Crook in there? It didn't even have Crook.
Well, interesting.
Yeah. Well,
That's
that's just so
Right.
that's one of the third-party provider organizations, but there are others.
Yeah, it's like there's a ton of homes in Clark County. I wonder if they have ours listed. Huh. I don't know. Anyway, so that's just something I wanted to share with you guys. Like, that you can go find on there, oxfordvacancies.com. That's just, again, one organization, one entity that does this, that you can look and go, okay, cool, there's demand. And then if you saw in there too, they have listed who the, primarily the consumer of that website is potentially someone in that county wanting to move into that home and see if there's availability, but it also gives you the main point of contact to call maybe a home and go, hey, who's the chapter lead in that county? And I'd love to speak with them. And you can get transferred over to Kim or Todd or whomever, and then you just start building relationships with people in the area and just start understanding things. And so like my current process right now is like, I'll find a home and have a conversation to see if it's something that I could purchase creatively. And if like they're wanting to move forward, I'll immediately send the Zillow listing to my operator, my sober living operator, and have them either drive by it or provide me kind of a rough ballpark quote of where they're going to land on things. And I'll see if numbers wise it makes sense. So like the one in Kelso right now is going to be $38.50 a month is what they're going to be paying me. So it's a little bit lower because it's not a bigger area. Cowlitz County is kind of smaller. And my mortgage on that one is $29.50. And so there's enough room in there that I could turn it into a rental and, cash flow a little bit of money. It's not a home run today. I mean, after putting the money for a private money lender and all those things, but it's still a rental. So
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, very
Yep.
I actually did think of one quick question if it's not too late. It was on the insurance aspect of it. I had to switch over to a commercial insurance company because it's a group home for adults with disabilities, so it's assisted living, and my normal homeowners insurance companies would not cover it. So it took me a while. I had to find a mortgage broker. It was a complicated process. Finally did find someone to put under a commercial policy, but it's not the cheapest thing. I don't know if
If you know, I'll get you in touch with my commercial agent. They do a pretty good job pricing for me.
that'd be amazing. Thanks, Dave. I think that was.
I think we pay about two grand a year for commercial insurance.
For a house?
it's not bad.
So that we have renters insurance. on top
Oh,
of
that's
that.
your liability.
Yeah, but that's the commercial liability insurance.
Okay, cool.
We still have to have our renter insurance.
What's your email again? I'm gonna
DA
put-
Budnick, UDNICK at USULREMGT.com.
Okay, I'm putting it in the chat for you, Matt.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Suzanne.
Did it before. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm
Cool.
glad
Thanks, Landon.
We did this. And thank you
All
also
right.
for hearing guest speakers.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
So I'd love to stay in touch with you about your business.